Hi, guys. Welcome back to Publishing Power Play. And I have our very first guest. I'm super excited about Brooke Young being here. Brooke, I'm going to let you just tell them a little bit about why you're here, like what you do, so that you can give them some trade secrets on what you look for, if you don't mind doing that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. So Jen and I, we have a great relationship that we built over time. And when she asked me to be a part of this new project and new podcast that she was starting, I couldn't say yes quickly enough because not only do I do this every day, I've seen how important it is in so many people's lives. I've worked with clients from 12 years old to 80 or 90 years old that maybe are for the very first time being interviewed, getting featured. And I've seen what an impact it has, not only on their businesses and their brand, but their self-esteem and their mental health and their confidence. So that's what really keeps me motivated to do what I do. In terms of what I actually do, I own a communications consulting and public relations company. So I work with people to shape their stories, hone their stories, and then get their stories out there into the world in the way that feels right for them. I focus on heart-centered storytelling. I think that's why Jan and I get along so well. I really like things that are purposeful and that are adding more goodness to the world. That was hilarious. More goodness to the world versus feeding into this negative and toxic cycle that we can see in the media.
Brooke, I think that is one of the places that we really align is we're not transactional, we're transformational. And we want your story to not be a sales pitch, but to be a transformational pitch, something that someone sees and thinks, I can be that. I want to achieve that. And then move into that space. I was hoping that you would share a little, first of all, don't let me forget when we're going further to talk about It's Never Too Late, because we just had this great talk. I'm like, stop talking. I want this recorded.
She had to cut me off. She's like, no.
Like, I want this on recording. Everyone needs to know this. But let's talk about a few things that you look for when you're helping someone achieve those things in the public eye, whether it's in print and publishing, whether it's on television. What is it that you're looking for?
My background's TV, but I do a lot of print work now. Number one, just being respectful. You would be shocked and absolutely horrified at the amount of people that send a hi and then put in parentheses, insert name here. And how often you can still get those pitches that aren't even personalized. So be respectful, do a little bit of research. You are not going to want to pitch an AI story to someone that covers wellness or nutrition. Make sure that the people that you're contacting make sense for you and make sense for your message and make sense for your values. And when you approach them, you don't have to be formal. You don't have to be fancy. And so often I see writing these huge, long, novels. It doesn't have to be that either. It can just be, hi, I do this thing and I wanted to share this with you. And I believe it might align with your audience because of this. But that because it's going to be so important. Because if we can't make a connection, I don't know if you guys have ever done dot to dots when you're a little kid. If we can't draw a line between why this person would be interested and what you're trying to say to them, that probably means you just haven't found the right person. So look for the right person where you can clearly draw that line and say, okay, I think this could be something they're interested in.
I feel like I talk to my clients about this all the time, that they are caught in the spaghetti effect. They just throw everything they can pop into their head against the wall and pray something sticks. And that never works, right? And if something does stick, it's usually like, oh, I hate doing this, right? So it takes a lot of work to get to where you want to go, as far as chunking down, really getting that message really heartfelt, centered, focused on who you're talking to. And working with people like Brooke is exactly why I wanted her on the show. Like, what do? I feel it. It's in my gut. I'm on fire with this passion for it, but I just can't get past this point. So when they're reaching out to you, and I love that you said, stop sending those emails as they insert here.
Please don't do that. I booked for a couple TV shows. I booked for a magazine. Please don't do that.
100% stop doing that. Like, be real, be you. Even if you say, like, what I'm doing is really messy right now, but this is my message. How I would love to be able to put it there, because I believe it can change this. It can make this kind of impact. Those, I love authentic. Wow, they're messy. We can fix that, right? We can help them with that. But if you come out with just throwing that spaghetti against the wall, it's usually nothing sticks, honestly.
No.
And the one piece that does stick is usually not your heartbeat. It's not where you are visioning going.
No, and that is so huge too. It's if you share every message that's on your heart, some of our messages are fleeting and some of the messages are the things that we really, really, really care about. If you can find a way to tie the thing that you care about, let's say you care about financial independence for women, if you can tie that to something that's happening in the world, for example, student loan repayment, that can get so newsworthy, so amazing. It's finding the things that you care about and really, really, like you said, set you on fire. And then how do I apply this to what's happening in 2023 or 2024 or 2025? Because that will shift too. So you can come at it from a different angle, but keep the heartbeat of what you're doing the same.
I'm going to give you guys a little tool to get started with. One of the things I have my clients do before I work with them is tell me their story, but I ask them to write it out or do it audibly and send it to me. Mm-hmm. What happens is at night when I have all my paperwork and before I go to sleep, I have markers. I have a pink one, a yellow one, a blue one. And I start marking great personal quote. Wow. Mission statement. Yes. Wow. And I pull out all their heartbeats in their story. I'm like, it doesn't have to be, when you give it to me, it doesn't have to be in order. It just can be super messy, things that come up. Oh, I remember this, and this is why I did this. And I can go in there and pull all of that out that you're not seeing. You're saying it in a messy way and not really tying together those heartbeats. So if you guys do this exercise, write it out and then ask somebody else to read it. And when they read it, just tell them what pulled for you. Where was my messaging? And then focus on those messaging, like statements that you put in there and not all the detail, because people get caught in the details.
They do get caught in the details and they get caught in, oh, I said 1993 and I meant 1994. And for some people, that absolutely destroys what they're going for. The thing that I would add to that too is at most people's core, they want to feel better than they felt after they read your article. And so we also need to examine, how do people feel when they come into contact with my story? Because sometimes we can get caught in the gloom and doom of our story and maybe not have a resolution or a hopeful point, or maybe it's too hopeful and there's not enough adversity where we come off as fake. So it's, if somebody reads this, how are they going to feel afterwards? Perfect. And we want them to feel uplifted. We want them to feel good. We don't want to make people cry in the club. That's not usually our intention or goal.
So Brooke, would you agree with me that people, I don't care how beautiful your brand is, I don't care what fonts you're using, what pictures you're showing, what copy you're writing, if you aren't creating an emotional feeling for that person that you're trying to draw in, people buy emotions. Would you not agree? They buy change. 100%. How will I feel when this happens? So what Brooke said is so important. So we talk about in the articles people write for me, I ask them, if you want to talk about the valley, that's great. You talk about the valley, you talk about the climb when you hit the mountain. Mm-hmm. So the things you learn, the tools you grab, then you talk about the mirror image of that valley. What did it feel like when you got to that peak, right? Even if that was, hey, I got to the peak and I saw another peak.
Right, that happens.
So I crawled through that valley. And then up that
but don't leave people in the valley. Don't leave people. Yeah. And I say this a lot to people, especially because your viewership wants to get into positive media and positive spaces. Leaving people in the valley helps. It doesn't help move the media world forward. And we're starting to see this shift in big media like MSNBC or CNN. We're even starting to see more positive stories pop up there because people don't want to live in this valley. They realize how bad it is for them. They realize how bad this chronic stress is. And so it's okay, I don't want to leave people there. So even if my story's got some really negative parts, how do I make sure that it's something that people can actually transform from, something actionable that they can use to make their life better?
So when I started my journey 12 years ago, I remember I went to I paid a lot of money to sit in front of this group that was going to help me. And so I did that. I told them, I see myself doing this and I see myself doing that. And this is what I want to do. These are the people I want to help. Who do you want to help? Everybody. I can help everybody.
Everyone on earth.
Like a nutritionist, everyone needs good nutrition. So you could blanket that statement. But the truth of the matter is the more you chunk down and you find out exactly who that person is, the bigger your world becomes. So taking the time to chunk down on who am I serving? Who am I speaking to? And every time I'm booked on a stage, and I have spoke on stages of 35,000 people. Yes. And I've shared stages with people like Hugh Jackman. And so when I would get on those stages, I didn't talk to the masses. My message were for my people. And I know that I
Mhm.
know you know this, Brooke, when you're booking speaking events, live speaking
Yes.
events, television programs, they invite many people. They invite the scientists to talk to all the nerds,
Mhm.
right? The geeky people that want to hear the science.
The nerds and the
Right.
AI people, we got to add
Yes.
them now. That's a
Oh yeah,
huge
the
subset.
AI people with like the new platforms and
Yeah.
categories or whatever you're typing into AI to get the right, information out. They write the motivational speaker that's going to make you fly when you go out, the inspirational one that brings tears and moves you. They invite all these speakers because they know when they have that many people, they're not talking to one person. So I learned the very first time I went on stage, relax, just talk to your people. And I did, and it was amazing. And so now when you chunk down and you go anywhere and speak, if you're invited on a television episode or whatever that is that you have an opportunity, a platform to speak, just speak to your people. That's all you have to talk to. You're authentic, you're true. And the biggest thing, you're connecting. So when you're
Mhm.
up there and you're like trying to talk to everybody, it's the spaghetti again. Like I'm just throwing everything
Yes.
there. Hopefully somebody will hear the message.
And people do that with these really humongous platforms. Now, please understand, I am a huge advocate for some of our major players, our Forbes and New York Times. All that's beautiful. Don't overlook the power of your smaller trade publications, of the places where your people actually live. Because let's say you are a mental health practitioner. Look for holistic spaces, look for spaces that are uplifting, look for grief related spaces. Don't overlook a slightly smaller space that would house a lot of your people. Because sometimes my clients are very shocked to realize they can make more money from a smaller outlet versus a big outlet because everyone there is really aligned with that message. So be open to all the different types of media. Don't just say, I want to go on the Today Show. That's beautiful, have the goal. But also, where else would you like to be to find your sort of people?
I will tell you too, we're going to put all of Brooke's connections here in the notes. You guys can go grab it, connect with her, learn more from her, possibly hire her to rep you. Having said that, I'm going to tell you how to approach people. For me, I like LinkedIn as my zone because there's a lot of business people, a lot of like companies are sitting there, right? And that's my people and I know where they're at. So I pay attention to what I do there. And what I hate the most, and Brooke, I'm sure you get this, I wake up every morning to 200 pitches at least on a slow
Uh-huh.
day. And it's all about what they want from me to give them, right?
Yeah.
I will go and I'll look at some of them that pique my interest. They've never once commented on anything. They've never once left a thumbs up. How much energy does that take? They know nothing about me or what I do. They just cold pitch mass people. And that is a complete heck no. I don't even respond. I just delete or block. Here's what does work though. When I had a guy wanting, and I don't promote my podcast on iTunes, but
Yeah.
he wanted to promote my podcast. He commented on everything, like heartfelt comments. He was liking everything. He reached into a DM showing me my podcast, things and how he could with a plan on. And I love this guy. We are still friends. Never hired him because I don't promote, but I have referred him to so many people because he made a connection with me. He took the time to connect with me first, to know about me before he pitched services or where he'd like to go and how he'd like us to collaborate. Instead of, I get on so many calls, I'd love to collaborate with you in your magazine and your platform. And I get on there and they want me to buy something.
Yeah, of course. And we see that a lot. I have a really good friend. He owns 3 magazines, actually. I was just talking with him yesterday, so this is timely. And it's always my running joke with him. I'll say, how many emails have you gotten in the past 30 minutes? He's like, oh, 100, over 100. And I was like, really? And then he goes, and almost none of those say which magazine they're even pitching. So especially if a journalist has more than one focus or niche or vein, make sure you tell them what you're actually pitching because you might get thrown away on a really good pitch because it didn't make sense for what they thought you were saying. So for example, he owns a magazine about business and about pets. And so he can get really, he's very confused. Like, is this person pitching a sweater for pet parents or for business people? So make sure you're really clear. That will work wonders.
Especially if you can refer back to an article maybe you read in that magazine. I really love this article that you had recently in your magazine. Or if you want to be on a high-end podcast. Here's the thing. I connected with so many major authors by going on to, I don't know how I learned this, but going into Amazon. They all have author pages, right? And
Really?
yes, they have author pages, and like these New York Times bestsellers, these major big bestsellers on Amazon.
Yeah.
And I would reach out. I loved your book. I left them a review, personal review, and then I leave them one from the magazine. And I started building a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, I would love to put your book in the magazine. Would you write an article? Yeah, they said, of course I would, because I took the time to build a relationship. But I've connected with them. So many people in that area. When I was doing webinars, right? I would do these big, massive webinars. That's how I got my speakers. They were all best-selling authors. And I would go on there and say, build that relationship. I would love for you to speak on my webinar about exactly what you're doing with your book. Heck yeah, they would come on, and then they share outside of my bubble, right? I have one bubble. My bubble has grown, but having said that, I'm always looking to tap into other people's social media bubbles, right? To expand my reach. And so I was able to do that and build a platform. So if you do things right, you guys, I built a 1.25 million email list in less than 3.5 years. So it's possible to do it, but be careful. What you wish for comes, and it's expensive.
And then you're stressed, right? And that's
Yes.
a huge thing too. Make sure that if you want something, I am a big fan of dreaming big, but make sure that you're ready for it. Because I've seen this too on the opposite side. I had a client, a very smart woman, but she didn't have stuff set up on the back end to support the type of PR that I was able to get for her. And then it became, I'm so stressed, I don't have this. Right. So make sure that you have your system set up. And I like to think of a staircase. Let's say you get on TV. That's great. What do you want them to do afterwards? Right? What's the step you want them to take? Do you want them to join your email list? Do you want them to buy your book? Because if we don't have that set up, we aren't capturing the people that loved us.
Well, that brings me into, because we still have a few minutes, that brings me into the one thing I wanted to talk about that I made you stop talking about. It's never too late. I have a beautiful client who has an incredible TED Talk out, and she did it because it was what her heart led her to do at the moment, and it was perfect timing. But she didn't have anything set up on the back end. And so she was having regret when we talked. And I'm like, what? You did half the work already. It is evergreen. We can pull from that at any given time and build from that. So we can build from it 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It's still relevant. And so tell us how you are working with helping people tap into some of that goodness, an old book, maybe a TED Talk they did, a huge podcast that they had, something that they've done and they thought that was a waste. I really didn't know how to monetize on it.
Yeah, it's never too late. And like I mentioned, I've had clients as young as 12 up until 80. And I had a woman sit down with me once, and she basically said, I've never done this before. She was in her 70s. I don't know how to do this. And I was like, you've been sharing your heart and you've been sharing your message in a way that hasn't been mass media for so long. She'd been speaking at churches and other events. I was like, this is no different. It's a conversation. And so some of my clients, what we leverage is a TED Talk from 5 years ago, or it's a book that they wrote 15 years ago. It doesn't have to be new. Just as long as your heartbeat towards it is the same, maybe the book that you did 15 years ago can be applied to our society in a brand new way, with brand new eyes to our contemporary issues or ideas or problems. So it's looking for really creative ways to say, what are the things that you have done? And how can we tie that to what is going on today and what you're dreaming of and what you're looking for today? And, one of my clients uses something from 40 years ago. So there is no limit to as far back as you can go. Honestly, we see MDs. I have some MDs as clients. She hasn't practiced medicine in 30 years, and yet she still draws on that background because she knows it helps her credibility. Anything that helps your credibility, I don't care how long ago it was, is worth finding a way to use. Even if it's not, it has to, sometimes we have to be very creative. Because if their business structure has changed since writing the book, we have to say, okay, she transitioned from this industry to this industry, and the book, shows that or shares that. But there's a creative way to do anything. It's just, like I said, connecting those dots.
And being authentically you is huge. The minute you try to emulate someone else because you saw them and you admire them, man, on social media, people see that. And if I can't trust you for that, I'm not giving you my money. I can't trust you for all the other things. And here's the one thing that breaks my heart. I'll see people posting, by the way, we shut off our likes on our social media because it doesn't matter.
I was trying to support you. I was like,
it doesn't matter to us. We feel like what we're putting out is from our heart. And it's like it either hits you or it doesn't. That's okay. And so we don't want to evaluate it's like evaluating yourself daily by stepping on this scale. And that's your self-worth for the day. And so we just don't do that anymore. Here's why. I had clients coming to me and they put something out and they would come crying. Somebody said this negative remark. But then when I would go look, there was hundreds of good remarks, people's lives they changed. Why are we so focused on the one negative? Here's the thing. If you aren't authentic and you're not being yourself, people will see that.
and if you're not excited about what you're doing, people will see that too.
100%. And I want to talk to you guys too about hiring people like Brooke. A lot of people are like, that's so silly. I can do that myself. Really? How many years did it take you to get to this point? How many times did you have to pick yourself up or pivot and redo something new or grow into the space like we're all growing into AI right now, right? You either get on board or you're going to be left at the station. So you have to figure it out. I just had a client say one of the most beautiful things ever, and I'm using it a lot, and I'm giving her credit for it. But Jen Drummond was just on KTLA, and she's phenomenal. But they asked her how she did this massive thing, right? How did you do this with 7 kids? She climbed or peaked the 7-second summits. She said, I had a big team. And if the bigger you go, the bigger your team has to be. You cannot do these things alone. And that's 100%. The bigger you go, the bigger your team is. They will support you. They're there when things look dark, right? They're there to help celebrate those little wins. They're there to help open the doors and guide you through the things that you need to do. Hire a big team if you have big dreams. And so that is my message to you. I want Brooke to leave you too with a message about getting out there in those speaking spaces. Like she does television, she does publication. So I want her to leave you with something as well.
Oh, this is a hard one. It's always hard to leave a parting message. If I had one, I think it's trust yourself and trust what you're here to do. Because what I see so often is what many of my clients will say, well, this is what I'm good at, but this is what my heart says I should be doing. And trust what you know is what you're supposed to be speaking about, even if maybe it isn't what you thought you would say. I've had clients at the last minute change what they were going to talk about or change their speech because they knew it wasn't right for them. So trust what's right for you and trust, like Jana said, trust your team, trust the people to give you feedback so that if you're going down a path that is crazy, trust not only yourself, but trust the people around you and make sure that you have people that you can trust. But always listen to that little voice because I can always tell if someone's scripted on TV. I watch a lot of football, guys. I can tell when someone is scripted or when they're not trusting themselves with their answers. So make sure that you trust what you're saying so that if you have to pivot or if you have to change it or if you have to amend on the fly, you can trust yourself and say, you want to know what? I was going to talk about this, but this is what I knew I needed to say.
And own it. Tell people that. Like literally, yes. I came out wanting to tell you about this, but I got here and the energy has shifted in me. And I feel like this is what you need to hear today. And this is why I'm here today, is to share this message and just go into it. People love that you're being honest and authentic. Yeah. One more last thing. One of the best things I learned about is love your mistakes. When you make a mistake on a stage of 35,000 people, own it, be okay. People want to support you. I learned this from Christian Chenoweth. I went to her concert. She's a client of my husband's. We went to her concert and I looked at my husband's like, did she just forget the words to Somewhere on the Rainbow? Like that's a song she sang for years. And then the next course came and she mumbled again. I'm like, she did. She doesn't know the words. And all of a sudden she put down her mic in the middle of the song and she put it back up. She goes, it's happening. I'm on stage. I've sang this song a million times and it just went out of my brain. We were at Hollywood Bowl and it was packed. It's probably 70,000 people. You know what happened? The whole crowd started singing the verse to her and they wanted to support her in that moment of real life, right? It happens. We're human and they wanted to support her and uplift her. So when you make a mistake, just like, so sorry. I did not mean to say that. Let me try to step back and do it. You know, Be yourself. Own the messy. Don't blurp it out. Don't act like it didn't happen. People want to support you in all of your human side.
And that is true with TV hosts. I did a lot of TV, did a lot of interviews. That was my main thing because I could help people feel comfortable. I have never, ever, ever, ever once wanted someone to fail. And if there was a mistake, just like you're talking about, I always made sure to cover it up as best I could or help them through it. 95% of people, now you're always going to have that 5%. So I'm not going to pretend they don't exist. 95% of people will help walk you through the mistake if you happen to make one, just like she's talking about.
I love it. Brooke, thank you so much for being here. You guys go ahead and start connecting with her. She's fabulous. If you're looking for someone to help rep you and take yourself to bigger and better places and the right places, connect with Brooke and do it from the heart. Like that's the most important key thing here. So thank you so much, Brooke.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was wonderful.